Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
This is Mark.
Hey, Mark. What's up, Mark?
What's going on? I'm listening to you, and I can't help but mention that you're ignoring the fact that all businesses didn't shut down. That Home Depot and Walmart and all the big box stores were allowed to stay open, and the only businesses that were shut down were small businesses that were owned by people, not corporations.
That's not entirely true.
So with that in mind, it's you know, the shutdowns didn't do anything because
I disagree.
Shut down completely. I mean, I went to Home Depot every day during the so-called shutdowns, and so did everyone else across the country, and as well as Walmart and the grocery stores. So, I mean, to buy into that, doing anything positive for anybody is just nonsense.
Well,
and the facts aren't there.
Well, so let me give you an example of where I think the shutdowns were necessary, that were done here in New Hampshire to some extent. So when Massachusetts was, because at one point Mass, particularly Boston, of course, was one of the epicenters very early in this pandemic, was one of the epicenters of COVID. Massachusetts did some pretty harsh shutdowns, and they did. Yeah, of course, I realize, and I'm not ignoring anything, Mark. I realize places didn't shut down entirely, but Massachusetts, they had shut down their bars because, obviously that's a big spreader of something like COVID. And our Governor Sununu, and he surprised me at the time. At the time, I was surprised. I didn't think he was going to do it, but we were going into St. Patrick's Day weekend. And he said, you know what? He issued a stay-at-home order. He said, we're not going to allow bars to be open for now because, we're concerned about COVID. And I honestly believe we dodged a bullet, in my view. If he hadn't made that call, we would have been flooded with people from Massachusetts, and they would have brought all kinds of COVID up here. And I think New Hampshire weathered this very well overall compared to most of the country. I think we would have been in a very different position if he had not made that decision. I think we dodged a bullet there.
There are more small businesses that were open, though. They weren't just the big box stores. Businesses that fell into certain categories that are necessary in a state of emergency in the nation were allowed to stay open, hence your Home Depot, because they're in construction. The ability needs to be there to rally that fast if we need it as a society under an emergency. So yes, and we all need to eat. So yes, food stores need to stay open so we can eat. But restrictions were applied.
That should scare the crap out of you, Jenny, because who's going to decide what's essential and who isn't? And then what
the laws are already written. I already know this. The laws are already written. We have them on the books. We've had them on the books forever. In fact, the one thing that I can say definitively about the United States Constitution is it states clearly that the American government is responsible for keeping the American people safe. That's their first job, their biggest, most important job. Keep us safe.
That's
and that's
in
what was
reference
done.
to national defense, not a cold virus that's going around.
This is not a cold. This is not. And how dare you?
It is.
How dare you?
No, it
how dare you desecrate the lives of over 600,000 Americans? How dare? It's not a cold.
Mark, we're going to wrap up because that's one thing I don't. I'll talk about almost anything with you, but whenever anyone goes there, to me, from my perspective, that is a giant middle finger in the air to every single healthcare worker in this country who spent more than a year working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to keep the rest of us from dying. It's a giant middle finger in the air to the families of the 600,000 dead people who have an empty table at their an empty seat at their dinner table tonight because someone's dead. It's a giant middle finger in the air to all the long haul COVID sufferers, and we're just not going there, dude. I'm sorry.
Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. Remember my girlfriend Michelle that you met, who lives in Virginia, who's a nurse, and she was sharing pictures of the room she was sleeping in, so she couldn't go near her dad or her children or her husband out of fear that she could bring something home to kill them because she's at UVA.
I need to explain something about what just happened. I want everybody to be really clear on what just happened. It's one thing if you want to call the show and have a conversation with me about policy around COVID, about decisions that were made, about whether, screw you, Mark. I see your comment in the chat room. You're an a-hole. Don't call me again.
This is the same person that was on my Facebook page, isn't it?
I need to be really clear about this. I will talk to you about almost anything, but if you're going to call this show and tell me COVID is a cold, you and I have nothing to talk about. I meant what I said. It is a giant middle finger in the air to the families of the 600,000 dead in this country. And we're not doing that on this show. You can disagree with me about all the policy decisions. You can tell me, well, I don't like the shutdowns and this and that. You can do that. But here's the thing. If you think COVID-19 is a cold or just the flu, there's still people out there who will say that, oh, isn't it just the flu? There's no such thing as a flu that kills more than 500,000 Americans within a single year. That's not a thing. That is not a thing. It doesn't exist. If that is your point of view, then you and I don't exist on the same level of reality. If you're going to say that to me, then you're in some alternate dimension, dude. You're in an alternate universe. And I'm not going to let you disrespect the families of the 600,000 dead Americans. I'm not going to let you disrespect all of the healthcare workers in this country who have been on the front lines of this. I'm not going to let you disrespect all the essential workers in this country that had to go out, that didn't have the ability to stay home, that couldn't afford to stay home during this, because that's another thing I hear from these people. Oh, well, if you're so scared, why don't you stay home? Well, guess what? Not everyone can afford to. Not everyone can afford to stay home from their job at the supermarket. Do you realize that there are people working in supermarkets who got COVID and died? Do you think they got a little cold? Do you think they got a little head cold and died? No, it was COVID. And you're not doing that. And nobody's doing that. If you're going to call this show and come at me with that nonsense, I'm hanging up. And by the way, I don't ever hang up on anybody. But Mark, screw you with that. I'm not putting up with that. Hey, but I know a business right here in Manchester. When you come up, you can go visit and hang out and chill. I'm sure they'd love you there, but not on my show. Sorry. You're not on the same plane of reality as me, dude. And yes, I know I have you blocked on Facebook, so I don't see the crap anymore, but other people do. And you're a full-on conspiracy theorist. You're like an Alex Jones guy. You probably watched that pandemic video that's on YouTube and thought, oh, yeah, this is probably what really happened.
He thinks everybody's getting stuck in the arm with a jab that takes away their ability to have children, because he posted it on my timeline and I ended up blocking him because he was going there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
For all the people who are actually pregnant right now that got pregnant after getting the vaccine, those are crisis actors.
And just so we're all clear, you can call I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. You can call this show and disagree with me on almost anything. But if we don't exist on the same plane of reality, if we're not in the same dimension, I don't want to talk to you because we have nothing to talk about. I'm interested in talking about politics. I love talking about politics. That's why I do this show. But if you're in crazy town, there was a time, by the way, I admit it, mea culpa, I would entertain people who would call with crazy conspiracies and whatnot. I used to think that stuff was kind of fun. I don't think that stuff is kind of fun anymore. I remember starting to think that stuff wasn't fun anymore when I saw a bunch of inbred rednecks try to kidnap the governor of Michigan. And I'll tell you what, I said, I'm not doing that ever again when I saw what happened on January 6th. We don't do conspiracy theories on this show anymore. I don't even want to hear from anybody who has that. You can call me and disagree with me on anything you want, but we have to exist on the same plane of reality. And if you're going to call this show and refer to COVID as a cold, then we have nothing to discuss. And I've talked to some crazy people about some crazy stuff on this show, but we're not doing that because
that's the truth.
Stupid. It's just stupid, and I have no time for it, and it is disrespectful. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, Matt, it's Ron.
Hi, Ron.
I guess I was pretty shocked too. I actually thought in the back of my mind that he might call back in and try to recant what he said, because
he won't.
But in any event, he didn't, and then he got he went on Facebook or whatever, and still had more bad stuff to say. So. I don't know. This is one where you nailed it.
By the way, and by the way, Mark, I hope you hear this. Anyone who uses the term libtard as an insult, that is, not only is it offensive because of what that word is derived from, but my God, anyone, because I hear conservatives do that all the time now, and it's like it's so unoriginal and unclever. But that's what he's,
that's something the
but that's what he's
15-year-old
calling
says.
me in the. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. If you think believing in science makes me a libtard, then fine. You can call me that all you want to. But oh my God, I'm offended by Mark's lack of creativity. That's the best he can do. Oh, Matt, you're a libtard. Screw you,
They've
buddy.
been saying the same old tired thing for so long. They don't know how to do anything in reality.
I know. I'm sorry, Ron. I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but you
No.
brought.
I think you said a lot, and I hope now you can, and you can keep on going. Believe me, but I hope now before it takes the best of you. I hope you can catch a breath and get back down to being who you and Jenny are on the show, because. Don't bring that to bed with you tonight. Get rid of it now.
No, I won't. Believe me.
You take something else.
All right, brother.
All right, Ron. I appreciate the support. Thank you for the call.
We love you.
All right. Take care, my friend. All right. Well, let's take a break.
I think that's a good idea.
We're past the top of the hour, and I got a song.
You made me tired. I love you, and you're 100% correct in what you said, and I support you 100% in that.
Oh, I should play the anti-vax Janet.
Oh, God.
Anti-vax Janet meets COVID-19. I haven't played that in a while. That seems appropriate.
It might be his mom.
See, this is why we're never going to get to herd immunity in this country, because
No, it'll happen.
no, it won't.
Sure it will.
Because
Kill a bunch of them off first, but it'll eventually happen.
yeah.
It's statistically impossible not to. It's just now we're seeing an epidemic amongst the unvaccinated.
Yes, absolutely.